So when it comes to this word or this idea of restoration, is particularly when we're talking about faith, what does that mean to you? Like, what are some of the passages that come to mind? What are some of the themes in the text? What are some of the ways that you think about what it means to have restoration when we're talking about it through a theological or faith-filled lens?
I think for me, when I'm thinking about it through a more theological lens, sorry, my kid just dumped cinnamon sugar all over the floor. Good morning. I mean, I kind of, I think that I think a lot of people, or I always think of it or have thought about it in the past, and I don't know that I think about it anymore, but like getting something that you lost, like to, obviously to restore something. I think of, I don't know, I'm not gonna lie, I haven't actually picked up the Bible in a few years. But
All right.
but I think of like, God's promise to restore Israel, right? To restore the Israelites, to restore what was lost for so many of his people. And so just almost this thing that you've lost and needs to be given back. But I feel like lately I've been thinking about it more in potential, maybe things that you didn't do or were afraid to do. And I think there can be a restoration of what God has for you or your opportunities that never came to fruit, if that makes sense.
Yeah, perfect sense. That's excellent. Anybody else?
I think about like repairing or restoring relationships, like our connection with God or our communion with God back, like biblically, that relationship between us and God will be restored to what it was intended to be.
Nice. I like the word repair there. Yeah. Keep going. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
No, that was basically it.
Yeah, that's good. Excellent. Anybody else?
I think for me, it's like the emphasis is always on the rest of restoration. I think of like in the 23rd Psalm where it's like, he restoreth my soul. Yeah. And so this idea, not necessarily of restoring, like replacing something or paying back something, but more just like if you go to a spa, you say, I was restored, or so like, I know this is like really not community minded and individualistic, but like when I think of restoration and faith, I think of being somehow God providing that rest or restoration, just kind of mentally and physically and spiritually, I guess.
Yeah. Thank you. Anyone else? Craig?
I think of the words made whole comes around a lot. And the restoration isn't always like a God thing. It's a person to person thing. A lot of it was transactional. Like if you need to restore your relationship or whatever with this one person, that's what I think of a lot when I hear it.
Awesome. Yeah, I like the made whole. Anybody else? Callie, if you weren't in a car, I think you were from the flapper era, from the 1930s. All right. So, yep, got that flapper hat going on.
California, my friend in California made me this hat.
I love it. Looks great. All right. So let me ask you this question, unless anyone else has a last second kind of definition or theme or something around restoration that you want to share. Nope. Okay.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead, Amanda. Go ahead.
And I apologize, I got a little distracted. So if somebody already said something, but I think about, I think sometimes the word restore is used, at least in the Second Testament, to refer to Jesus healing somebody, restoring their sight, restoring their healing, whatever. So I apologize if that's a repeat.
No, but you just segued perfectly, because that's exactly what my next statement was going to be. Is so throughout the text, and it's not really just in the Second Testament, as you say. We see it in Joel, we see it in Jeremiah, that often restore and healing is hand in hand. But what's interesting is they usually mention both. I will restore you and heal you. Now, you guys have all been around me long enough. I apologize for that fact, but you've all been around me long enough for us to go, okay, so why mention both? Because it feels like they're the same thing. So what do you think it is that the Bible or the writers, when they're writing this, so whether there's any mystical piece to this or not, but just in the technique of writing, the rhetoric here, why do you think that they emphasize restoring and healing two separate ways, as two separate things? So they restore and heal. Go ahead, Wade.
I don't know if this is accurate or not, but I often remember that those who were healed while they were unhealthy were excluded from the community, or put on its edge, on the edges of the community.
So like the lepers who Jesus heals their leprosy and then says, go and be restored to the temple. Is that what you're talking about? So they're healed, but then they have to go and restore themselves with the
or the
priest.
woman with the discharge who could, and so this idea that healing them was the physical part, and then restoring them could be kind of the communal social part. To
So
say,
yeah,
it isn't enough that you're physically well, but the other thing that you've been deprived of is being part of a part of that community, and so that part needs to be restored as well as physical health.
excellent. Anyone else? What other thoughts? That's good stuff.
I think there could be a difference, like restoring could be something that needs to happen multiple times throughout your life. But if you're healed of something, you might need to be healed of other things. But if something's healed, then hopefully it's kind of like final. Like if sight has been restored, then maybe sight remains restored unless something unexpected happens again. But restoration is more, can be multiple times throughout your life.
Excellent, Sarah. I want you to put a pin in that piece that you said about the restoration being, I'm going to use the term cyclical, but repeated over and over, because we're going to come back to that. And that is spot on with the way that we see it used in the text. So yes, excellent. You all could have been teaching this teaching. You didn't need me. All right, Tana, what do you got?
It's interesting because I've almost been thinking of this the opposite way. And this is not like a biblical example. I'm just thinking like modern time kind of a thing, where if somebody did, I'm trying to think of an example. Let's say I got mad at my brother, and so I took a golf club to his car. I
That's
don't know.
very specific. That's very specific. I'm
Not
just saying.
based on a real life example. Oh, I can base it on a real life example. I was mad at him when I was younger and I destroyed his Walkman. So let's say that, like, I just like beat the hell out of his Walkman and just,
That's worse.
that's worse.
Did it have auto reverse? Because if it had auto reverse, and you
did.
didn't have to flip that cassette tape. Oh man, I don't know. This might be it for Tana and I right now. I don't know. We need some restoration now, Tana.
Yeah, I used to have some major anchor issues. Anyway, so I had to obviously pay for a new one for him, and so I restored his Walkman, but it took way more steps to heal the relationship, and it took years to heal that relationship. We had some struggles through a certain point in our siblinghood. So I was just thinking that it's possible that you could restore something, but not have healed the relationship that goes along with that restoration.
Yeah, I think what we're getting at here, Tana, I think you're spot on. So I think that in some ways we've made those words so synonymous that we could probably interchange. Like you could say you healed his Walkman by putting it back, but it took a while for you to restore the relationship. It's just we don't tend to use the word heal for something inanimate. So but I think we've made them synonymous, but I think we're still getting, I think everyone's kind of on the same page, unless I'm misunderstanding. I think we're all kind of on the same page that there is something that is imminent, like right in front of us, but then there is something that exists that has to take place that goes beyond that imminent item. So anybody else have anything they'd like to add? Mr. Kissinger?
Is this gonna be a thing about the LeBron and the Cavs thing since you're wearing the shirt?
Yeah, this is about LeBron coming back to the Cavs is what I'm trying to have happen. Yeah, definitely. Mr. Kissinger, did you have something? I saw your mic is unmuted.
Oh, I was just going to say that I think of when at first when you talked about or asked about restored, I thought of the relationship with my father because of the abuse that he inflicted on me for over a decade, and my desire, and I think his desire too, to work to restore that relationship has not been easy, but I believe that that we're on a path of restoration.
Yeah, excellent. Anybody else? Tally, did you have something?
I guess physical of like, well, like in David's case, for instance, am I still on?
Yep, you're good.
Okay. That like, you know,
It never fails. Everyone comes in super clear when they're checking to see if they're still on, and then when they get back into what they're talking about, that's when they go back out. It's never fails. All right, we'll circle back to Tally.
there?
Oh, now you're back.
Okay.
Go, don't wait, go.
I know I'm trying, but then the restoration piece is like that mental, emotional, that doesn't heal so quickly. You know, that's something that to restore that is different than just like setting, you know, putting a Band-Aid on something and having it heal. It's a lot longer of a process.
Agreed. Yes. Excellent. All right. So let me move us on to the next piece. And because I want to think about this as what about in a non-theological way? So when we talk about, like, if again, I don't like cars, as many of you know. I'm not a car guy. If you need something fixed around your house, I am not the person to call. Though I did screw a screw in yesterday, which meant I was done for 2022. So I'm not the person to call. But I love watching TV shows where they restore homes or they restore old cars. I love to watch those shows. I love to watch the process. I love to hear the thinking about it. I love to see something going from a piece of junk or rundown to something coveted and desirable. Now, I think part of that is my own baggage growing up in a similar situation to David, where there was abuse. My mom's favorite thing to say to me, and this isn't meant for anyone to feel bad for me because I've worked through this in counseling, but was, if it wasn't for the clothes on your back, you wouldn't be worth the shit in the sewer. So for me, I think this idea of watching these stories of restoration, whether it be a home or it be a car, is often kind of this piece of junk that actually over time, with care, consideration, and the right tools, actually becomes something of beauty and value. So what is it that you would say are important for us to think about elements of restoring in those ways? So whether it's an antique that's being restored, or it's a home that's being restored, or a car, or anything like that. Maybe it's an old photograph that's being restored. What are some of the elements that you think are important to note about that process? Let me give you an example that might help jumpstart this. They don't use original parts. When you restore a home, for instance, you might cut out the old warped boards on the floor and replace them with new boards. So you don't use the same things that were a part of the original. So any other thoughts? What other elements are important for us to understand when it comes to restoration in the way that we think about it, in just kind of like a very mechanical way? I'm not talking about like psychological or anything like that.
I don't know if this will make any good correlations, but I was actually thinking about photographs right before you said photographs, because my dad does a lot of photograph restoration, and I've seen his before and afters, and we've talked about it a little bit. And yes, Craig, Batteries Not Included is an awesome movie. Anyway, he would talk about how in some of the cases, he was restoring photographs that were taken by the family, and he had a vague memory of what the thing looked like, But in a lot of cases, he doesn't have that reference. And so he has to use context clues from the remaining part of the photograph and fill in something that still looks good, but also captures the essence of what that photograph is, if that makes sense. Because the reason that people want it restored is because it's meaningful to them in some way. It's a picture of a person they've lost, or a picture of a place that was important to them, and so the important thing is that it's restored enough in a way that still speaks to who that person was or what that place meant.
Excellent. That's awesome. Great example.
So my example, and I think Tally will appreciate this, Tally did some work for me this past year on space, and part of the projects were restoring or refinishing some tables, which is something that is completely out of my wheelhouse. And so for me, when I think of stuff like that, there is an element of learning that has to take place and an element of growth. So it was all completely stuff I had never done before, because I'm like, why don't we just do that? And Tally was very graciously like, no, that will not work. So there was a lot of, it took to restore, which I'm very proud of those damn tables. I am just gonna say, like, I'm gonna use that as like my claim to fame for another few years.
Awesome.
But it was like I had to learn, and I had to like get rid of a lot of my ideas and in order to restore it. And so it wasn't like when you said that it's not always the same, right? So you're adding new things to it. I just think of it kind of in that way. Like I had to learn new skills in order to do it correctly. I had to let go a lot of my ideas that I was sure would work, but didn't work. And there was a little bit of trial and error in it. So yeah, like just that's kind of what I'm thinking, is that like you have to be able to learn new skills. You have to be able to grow a little bit in order to restore all of that.
Yeah. Excellent. You guys are
So
awesome this morning. You're knocking it out of the park. Go ahead, Wade. Keep
one
it
of the
going.
things I was thinking of, and so I posted a link in the chat to the Wikipedia article about kintsugi, which is a type of restoration of ceramics done in Japan. But that this idea that restoring something is not replacing it. Like you don't just replace it with something new and you've wiped out that history.
Is this the one where they put gold in the cracks?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And so it's like your restored self is not a separate thing from the self that was broken. And that like I think we, if we see any remnant of the old, we think restoration hasn't happened because we can still see, that it was broken. But there's this idea that some restorations take what is broken and repair it, but not in a way that necessarily you would look at it and say this was never broken. That is now part of it. Just like everything, like Sarah said, like everything that you learned in your brokenness.
Yep.
You don't want to get rid of that. What you learned in the process of restoring, I think needs to stay part of you, because that is you, and not just, well, we need to replace a broken you with a not broken you.
Well, I love that you all clearly have read my teaching notes, and you're just keep moving me along. So thank you, Wade. Also, because that's spot on. So let me ask you this question, and in some ways your kintsugi kind of jumps ahead a little bit. And I hadn't thought about that as an example, and it's perfect because I thought about reclaimed wood. But why do we value patina but not cracks and rust? And so that was going to be my question, but Wade, in some ways, by putting the kintsugi, you're kind of showing that there are ways. For my example is reclaimed wood, and that we love to see the marks in the wood. In fact, now when you go to a furniture store and they have a prefabricated table, they actually beat it with chains and stuff to put those dents in it, so it feels like it's been used and worn instead of perfect. So why do we value patina but not rust or cracks? What do you think?
Because the patina, can you hear me?
I heard because the patina.
Oh, can you hear me now?
Yes, Verizon.
Okay, sorry. Because the patina doesn't like damage the integrity of the piece, whereas the rust or the cracks would damage the integrity of the piece, causing it to fall apart possibly, where a patina is just is worn, but it doesn't cause something to fall apart necessarily.
Okay. Perfect. Anything else? Amanda?
Just to follow on Tally's thing is, patina is appearance, whereas rust and cracks are structural. So, yeah, that's it.
I think also, like patina versus rust, the chemist in me is saying, well, they're both oxidation, but but I think a patina comes about through use and rust comes about through disuse. And so, so like a patina is something that is worn and is enhanced through use, whereas rust is because it was not used.
I love you guys because I can't give sloppy examples to you
Right.
guys. I cannot. Like, rust was clearly the wrong thing to use here, because
I
I don't want us to get in the weeds about rust versus patina. That there are other things that happen. So I have some
Right.
amazing glazed ceramics that the glaze is shattered basically. But it still holds water. It doesn't leak. But the glaze has all these spider webs and cracks in it. And some people would look at that and say that's no longer appealing. Sarah Millman, I'm sorry, you started to say something.
No, I was gonna say, and I am not a chemist, so I am not trying to refute anything that Wade said because I would never try. But when he said that, it almost, to me, both things are used, but one is cared for better. One is, oh, I'm starting to break, I'm starting to rust, I need to go get my car washed because there's salt rusting it, I need to clean it, I need to take care of it. And the other one is, oh, I'm starting to crack. How can I'm not ashamed of the cracks. I think they're beautiful, but how can I keep myself together in a healthy way? So like those two things for me, I don't know, just really stood out. And maybe I know nothing about rust other than that my cars get rusty because I don't take good care of them.
This is the beauty of metaphor. We can run with it however we want, Sarah.
Yes, but like I've been thinking about that a lot just in my personal life lately, is that it's okay to be broken, right? It's okay to need restoration, but you need greater restoration when you haven't allowed yourself to be taken care of and restored throughout the whole process than when you're at the end of your line, you're breaking down and there's a hole in your floor. So I don't know, maybe that doesn't make sense, maybe just in my brain, but that's kind of where I was like thinking, like it's okay to be broken, it's okay to need restoration, but is there a way to be consistently restored and not just fall apart from rust?
Yes, awesome. Tana, I saw you unmuted. Go ahead.
Yeah. So I've been thinking about all this as everybody's responding with the different meanings of rust and patina and all that and the cracks. And I going back to the what was it, kintsugi or
Yep.
that example. The thing that really struck me about that is that because they're pouring gold in, the cracked item that has now been restored with gold in the cracks in a lot of cases is more beautiful than it was before. And so it's not just a matter of like, oh, accepting our cracks or something like that. You know what I mean? In that case, it's like, oh, these cracks are what make this piece unique and beautiful. And I think that that can go for people too. Like, if I'm sorry, Don, I hope you don't mind me using you as an example, but you brought up your abusive household earlier, and obviously you had a lot of cracks because of that. But as you've healed and been restored and all that stuff, I think you're a more beautiful person than you could have been, because that the gold in those cracks has created so much compassion in you for other people. And so you have a broader understanding of what it means to care for people, to the point that I swear to God, just like random strangers will just seek Don out and then be like, that is a person who cares about pain. I'm going to tell them my pain. It's just like, it's strange. So anyway, sorry to put you on the spot like that, Don, and use you as an example, but yeah, I think I said everything I need to say. Sorry.
No, thank you. You know, I think, and to kind of touch a little bit on the kintsugi concept is also like when someone said, like, if you fall and injure yourself and maybe have a severe cut, right? We might say, oh, how did it heal? Oh, it healed great, but there's a scar, right? There's that gold in the crack of your skin. And we all know scars are hot. We know that. We've been told that. So like this idea that healing and restoration doesn't always imply perfection. And I think for most of us, when we think about being restored or we think about restoration, we think about a perfect replica of what we were at one point, or a perfect replica of a car is a perfectly restored car that you can't tell the difference of it moving off the showroom floor versus now. So any last thoughts about that before I move on to the next one? I'm really disappointed you guys all didn't segue me here for this next one. Anyone want to give it a shot?
Refurbished? No?
No.
I tried.
All right.
I was
So-
just gonna say,
Yes, sir.
I don't even know what patina is, but I'm just going on context clues from what you guys are talking about. But with the
It's when
rust,
copper turns green.
okay. But I was just thinking that like that sometimes it's just like the eye of the beholder. And like in some of our conversations with some of our friends recently, it came up that like in a certain town nearby, it's like against the law to park a car in the driveway or on the street that has rust on it. You have to keep it in your garage. And then like,
wow,
home to like our neighborhood and thinking that like, oh, like some of our neighbors wouldn't make it if that was like, but like this particular neighbor that I'm thinking about, like I respect so much because like he knows how to like repair and use things and doesn't care about like the outward appearance of stuff necessarily, but he knows like how to make it function and has like an extraordinary skill set in that area and still sees value in something, even if it does have a little bit of rust on it.
Absolutely. Perfect. That is not the segue, but that is a heck of a statement. I think about Betty White, right? Like that woman was still blessing this world almost to 100 years of age. And she was not the same person she was, but at no point were we ready to say, all right, we're done with Betty White, because she now is old and no longer functioning as well as she did. And I think that you're on to something really important in my mind, is that when we think about cracks and we think about rust, the things that we don't deem as beautiful, often it shows that we have continued to journey with the same item for a long time, and that we haven't given up on it, right? There's something kind of beautiful about having a car. Most of us don't have things until it's old enough to rust, right? Unless we didn't take care of it. And so there is something beautiful about this idea, like you said, Sarah, your neighbor who has the ability to keep it functioning, keep it able to do something of value still. And there's something really beautiful about that. I hope God continues to do that with me. So here's the next piece here is the way the word restore was used in ancient Greek outside of the Bible. Anyone want to take a stab at what was often being referred to, like elements or items that were often being referred to as being restored? Anyone have a guess? Like what things were being restored in ancient Greek minds and the way that they would talk about it? I realize you all will be guessing, so don't be afraid to be wrong, because if you get it right, it's gonna be awesome.
Statues.
No, but why do you think statues though, David?
Because there are a lot of Greek, there's a lot of statues, Greek statues.
Ah, got it. Okay. That is not it, but excellent guess. What else? What else can you imagine? Go ahead, Hannah.
Things destroyed by war.
Oh, interesting. No, but that's an interesting guess as well. There is a common vernacular. They would have used this word regularly, this idea of restore. They would have used it regularly.
Tzatziki sauce.
No, but I like the way you think, Craig.
I tried.
All right, anybody else want to give it a shot? Every day when the sun would rise, it would be restored. Every night when the stars came out or the moon came out, it was restored. The idea, it was often celestial bodies. It was the restoration of the stars. It was the restoration of seeing the different constellations in the sky, the sun coming out. So restoring was about the celestial movement. So yes, cyclical, there we go. Thank you, Amanda. Yes, Sarah, this is where your cyclical comes in from way back 20 minutes ago, is the cyclical nature of restoration. So how does that change the way we think about the idea of something being restored if we think about it in terms of the common vernacular of when the New Testament was written and they would have talked about you being restored? How would that change? And maybe this goes more, Sarah, maybe you feel like you could elaborate a little bit more on a little bit of your cyclical take here about the ongoing process of restoration. But how does this change a little bit how we think about restoring? It's always hard in the midst of a conversation like this when kind of it takes a quick right hand or left hand turn. So I understand it might take you a few moments to process, and that's fine. But do you think it changes anything when you think that every day? Now I know we're in Northwest Ohio in the middle of winter, so we don't know what it means for the sun to come up every day. We just know what it means to be gray every day. But how does that change? Amanda, what do you got?
I was trying to figure out how to raise my hand. I was just thinking about the verse where it says God's mercies are new every morning. So that every day, and that grief endures for a night, but joy cometh in the morning, things like that, are basically a this too shall pass kind of thing. And some of those verses,
unless you're Gandalf, then it doesn't pass. No.
Well, then you just become Gandalf the White. So
all right, so this too shall pass. Yes, Craig, don't shake your head at me. That was a pop culture reference. Oh no, shoot, that is probably 20 years old now, isn't it?
Just about.
Oh.
Yeah, Fellowship of the Rings. Yes, that's 20 years old now. Anyway,
And the book is 80 years old now, so
what?
Shut up, Wade.
What did he say?
He said the book is 80 years old now too.
Anyway, no, I was just saying that those verses like that are some of the verses that have gotten me through tough times.
Absolutely.
Clinging to those. So that's all I got.
Thank you. That's excellent. Anybody else want to add?
Well, I think there's also this feeling that either on our own part that, if we were just restored, we would never, it would be all better and we'd never need to be restored again. And I think on behalf of others, I think there's also a feeling of, why do we keep having to restore you?
Yes.
Weren't you restored already? Um,
7 times 70, brother.
yeah, so but when I think back to my original image that came to mind when you asked about, well, where do we see restore in the Bible? And it's this idea of rest. And
Yes.
it's like, it's not like, oh, well, I rested and therefore I never need to rest again.
Correct.
But so restoring your soul through resting and recovery doesn't mean, you do that so that you can go out and then you'll need rest again. But I do think that we treat restoration, we treat forgiveness, we treat making people whole as something that, well, I'm going to do it this one time, and that way I won't have to do this again. You had your chance, you were made whole, and therefore, kind of don't come back to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Craig, what do you got?
I was thinking about recently over the last because I got sick spring, summer of 2020.
Mhm.
I'm gonna try to keep it together, sorry.
You don't need to.
A lot of people who are going through the COVID thing, they're never going to be fully restored. They're going to have to keep, they're going to have to deal with that for the rest of their life. Just recently, I started having the same things happen that happened back then. And I just feel bad for all the people that have these immunocompromised, like you. And I'm sorry, I was just not, didn't even know you were sick.
I didn't tell anyone.
And yeah, I kind of figured that out, you jerk. But it's a constant state of restoration. So while this too shall pass and all that stuff.
I took that way too literally for those 48 hours, by the way.
Well, screw it. I'm just going to go into my prayer request.
Please.
My whole damn family.
Mm.
In England just got it. Except for my mom and Matt, which is cool because they didn't go to the gathering. But it's like, you think about 10 people getting it. Not only is one of them probably going to die, just statistically, but they're all going to have to deal with that for probably the rest of their life, however long that may be. And, having congestive heart failure and stuff. I hate to make this all about me. It's very narcissistic.
You're not. You're part of our community, so it's about our community, not you.
Yeah, but the bigger point is like the when you're restored, that's not a permanent thing. That's what I admire about it is the people like you guys understand and recognize, hopefully, that it ain't like a one-time deal. Okay, you're good, go on, be well and stay safe. It ain't like that. And so That's what I appreciate about y'all.
Thank you, Craig. Anybody else have anything they'd like to add? Amanda, I see your thing about baptism. And I think, Amanda, you know, I'm a big fan of be baptized as many times as you want. Because baptism didn't become a singular thing until the Gentiles took over Christianity. Prior to that, baptism was sometimes a daily thing if you were in a mikveh.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, and I know that, you know, it was something that you did. But women, of course, did it a lot, Jewish women, because of their own cyclical things, but also holidays and holy days, and other significant life events and things. And so my comment for those who can't read the chat, is that I have chosen to be baptized multiple times. And that has been a marker for me when I have taken a step forward spiritually, you know, when I have matured in some way, or have made a new commitment, or felt very connected to a community. So it's been a beautiful thing in my life, and I'm grateful for it. And I probably am not done doing it, although it's been a number of years since my last one. So
thank you. Anybody else want to share about how this idea of, you know, the sun or the moon, the celestial, the cyclicalness of this impacts the way we think about our own restoration, the way we think about how we participate in the restoration of others, how God participates in the restoration of all things?
I would just say that I've kind of observed a cyclical nature of my own healing and restoration from, sorry about the dog, feelings about my past and things that you know hurt me and have affected how I interact with the world now. And it's like I go for a while and I'm fine, and then for some reason something will come up that'll kind of bring all that up again, and then it's like I have to go through another process of healing. And so it's kind of like what Craig said, but for like psychologically, you know, instead of physically. It's like there's a part of me that's just like, but wait, I thought I figured this out. I thought I was restored. I thought I had healed. That should be a one-time thing. It should be over. But no, it's just, and I don't know why. I don't know what causes the cycle to go, but anyway.
Yeah, thank you.
I think this is just another example about how like women are the ultimate, because like women's bodies are cyclical, and
Yeah.
every month there's like the actual cycle, which some people even call the moon cycle, but like of the chance to create life, loss, rest in between, and all these things. Our bodies experience this biologically or physiologically, I'm not sure what the best word is, every month.
Yeah, agreed. Let me read a verse for you, and I'm going to read it to you from two different translations. The first translation you all are going to be familiar with because you'll want to sing along. Not sing along, I'm not singing it. So tell me if this sounds familiar. Create in me a clean heart, O God, and renew a resolute spirit within me. Right? There's I don't know that the worship song is those exact words, but it's very much along that lines. Now that is a paraphrase. So let me read to you what would be a more direct translation. All right, let me find it here real quick. I'm so sorry. Restore to me the joy of your salvation and sustain me with a willing spirit. And I think that that is such a powerful, I like that. I realize we all like the worship song, maybe, but we are all familiar with the worship song that create in me a clean heart, O Lord, and a resolute spirit. But the idea
I'm
is
not
to
familiar with the song, Don. Can you please sing it?
No, I don't know how to sing. So this idea of restoring our salvation, it fits with what Paul says. Paul says, daily I work out my salvation, right? That this idea of restoring is a daily process. It's a daily thing. Each day we must work out our own safety, as we've talked about before. Salvation meaning this idea of safety and safeness, that we must daily work out our own safety, daily participate in working out the safety of others. And I love that there's this idea, and sustain me with a willing spirit. Now, I'm going to go out on my own here, and in context, I might change my mind about the way to interpret this. But the way this resonates with me right now is that I'm also asking God to give me the fortitude to be able to carry on, continuing to participate in restoration. Because I think that's a hard thing to do, is to continue to participate in restoration. So part of the reason I was thinking about this for this morning was because it is New Year's resolution time, which I don't know if you noticed or not, but that's kind of cyclical. And often we make a resolution once, and then, I mean, what's considered a good run at a resolution? Are we talking like 3 months? Is that when we say, okay, I made a good run?
5.5 hours.
5.5 hours. Nice. For me, I often by the beginning of February forget what my resolution even was. I'm like, I don't know, what did I resolve to do?
If it's 3 months, then usually that's when you've already formed a habit. So 3 months is you're probably actually doing it. So
Nice.
I think my
All right.
record is maybe a week and a half.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm not good at this. But that's what kind of brought this whole idea of wanting to talk about this today, is this idea of the cyclicalness of restoration. And we all have those, we've seen the memes about 2020 and then 2021 about how, like, oh dear God, don't let 2022 be a repeat. But how do we become a people of restoration? How do we become that cyclical people that are constantly participating in the restoration of the world? Now, thank you, Wade. I owe you, because we had at Advent a couple years ago the charge for all of us to be a prick of light in the world, right? And I was disappointed in some ways that I didn't have that, but now I do. So how do we in 2022 become the gold in the crack of our neighbors, right? How do we do that? How do we become that this year? How do we function in being the restoration of our neighbors? It was intentional, Craig. Like, get away. So how do we become that? How do we work out the safety, the salvation? How do we work out the restoring? Like, when I look around, I was gonna say this room, but I guess it's a Zoom room. When I look at all of you, font, profile picture, or actual video feed, there's a hurt, and there's suffering, and there is power, and there is weakness, there is shame, there is guilt, there is excitement. how do we come together in such a way that I'm able to fill in some of the brokenness that you experience to bring about restoration, while also being vulnerable enough to allow some of you to fill in some of the cracks that I have that need to be restored. So when I think about what do I want in 2022, I want to live a life of restoration. I want to be about restoration this year. And I want to invite you guys along for that. And it doesn't have to be your New Year's resolution or anything. But so what does it mean for us communally? So I'd like for us to just take a couple more moments before we wrap up and share some ways or some things that maybe we can be more cognizant about, more intentional about, in order for us to experience restoration. Yes, spiritual intention for the year rather than resolution. Any thoughts?
I'm gonna apologize because I very well may stumble through this, but so I had posted on Facebook about the YouTube video that Malcolm had shared with us about, instead of having specific New Year's resolutions, you have a theme for the year. And I had chosen the theme of doing, because I can tend to get stuck in dreams and thoughts and plans and intention and then not actually do. And it's interesting because I've been thinking about this a lot the last few days, because a lot of times I come back to certain things that I used to do a long time ago, and then I'm like, why don't I do that anymore? Or have I missed an opportunity because I abandoned this part of myself? And I don't remember where I read something, but somebody had written something to the effect of like, you can grow and change. Like, just because you don't do this thing that you used to do a long time ago, that doesn't mean that's bad. You know, you may have had a dream when you were younger and your life changed, and that dream is no longer worth pursuing. Not just like, oh, woe is me, I regret never pursuing this dream kind of a thing. So in thinking about this in the context of restoration, you know, I have spent many years constantly lamenting that I have not restored myself to my like 18-year-old version that had certain plans and, you know, but this conversation has made me realize, like, there is a part of me that needs to be restored, and this is why I'm focusing on doing, in that I've just gotten kind of complacent and lazy, and it's just easier to not try to do things. And it's easier to just be like, I'm gonna Netflix and actually chill. And just like, you know, just kind of just, yeah. And in a way, I think no matter what I choose to quote unquote do this year, it's gonna be a restoration for me, because I'm going to be restoring myself to a person who does things. I was always a person who did things. I always did too much, actually. Yeah, so I love this vision of restoration as, you know, not having to be the same exact as it was before. And then just to take it outside of myself, I will be contemplating more about the restoration and like, how can I help others be restored? So just to make a note that I'm not 100% being selfish about this.
Wait, stop. Okay, hold up. Because I need everyone to be selfish here. This is our problem in the church, in our church. We need to be selfish. We need to say, these are the cracks that I have that I need someone else to step in and fill. We will never move beyond where we are today if we do not start doing that. We need to lose the language selfish. We need to crack, Craig. We need to make sure that we are sharing with each other those places that need to be restored. A car doesn't restore itself. A home doesn't restore itself. Last time I checked, most surgeons do not perform surgery on themselves. We need to be selfish and say, these are cracks in my life. Please, does anyone have the means to care for me? So let's not, if all of us are saying, well, I don't want to be selfish, so this is just about what I can do for other people, who is actually here for us to do anything for?
I gotta be honest, Don, I know I have a lot of cracks. Craig, stop. But I don't know what you guys can help me with. I don't know how to identify where you guys can come and fill in, or at least care for me.
Sometimes
I
we're
don't
just
know,
bubble
not
wrapping.
necessarily how to ask for that. Because I'm a big believer in being vulnerable with other people in safe spaces like this, but I don't know what I need. So I guess I need help figuring out what I need. So maybe that's
Yes.
where I start. I don't know.
Yeah. Listen, I don't know if you heard what I said because I kind of interjected while you were talking, but sometimes we just need bubble wrap, right? Like before those vases and those pieces of pottery that get filled, the crevices get filled. Is crevices better, Craig? The crevices get filled with gold. They need to be transported safely. So it's not just that we all can provide a filling, but in some ways we also need to make sure that we can help each other get to the place they need to get. Right? I am not a professional counselor, but I am willing to sit and talk with people until they can get to the place that they need to go. And sometimes that's what we need to be. We need to be that bubble wrap. Craig and then Tana.
Mrs. Mom gave me duct tape for Christmas because I broke my glasses like a couple days before Christmas, and I made a joke. I'm like, I don't have any other glasses. I need some duct tape or something, whatever my joke was. She got me duct tape, which was Ms. probably getting me duct tape through his mom, but
Yeah.
how it works. But that's, instead of bubble wrap, sometimes duct tape.
Sometimes
But
you need duct tape.
it was kind of it was a really fun and funny way of kind of like saying exactly what you just said. But
Absolutely.
my way of thinking that maybe we can help restore ourselves and each other, because I'm freaking broken, dude. But is not to waste time. And that's not to say don't play your games or watch TV or anything like that. But if you do something, do it intentionally and not just to do it out of habit. Like if you're gonna watch a movie or a show or a game, do it even if you just need it to relax. Do it under that premise. Know why you're doing it. Like, I'm gonna watch the Lions later. I don't know why. I need to just zone out and just take brain time away. But I'm not wasting that time.
Right.
And anything that I'm going to do, I I just don't want to waste the time. If I'm gonna watch something, if I'm gonna talk to someone or make a joke or whatever, scroll through Twitter or whatever, it needs to be intentional. And I think that's how, like, intentionality, I guess it's like I forget, Walt Whitman or whatever, Walden, one of those smart people. Wade probably knows. He's a nerd. Live intentionally, and even if it's like I said, repeating myself because it's 11:50, even if it's just to zone out, do it with intention.
Yeah, thank you. Tana?
Yeah, going back to what you said about the selfish thing and then what Amanda said. First of all, I'm kind of grateful for what you said because A, it's a good reminder, and B, it also reminded me that that's sort of a knee-jerk reaction for me to be like, oh, but I'm not being selfish, because my dad used to call me selfish all the time when I was growing up. Starting when I was like 7. And so anyway, just a little side note there. But Amanda was saying like, well, I don't know what I need. And then I was thinking about what you said, Don, and that phrase that's always like, you need to put your oxygen mask on before you can put the oxygen mask on your kid, or you'll pass out from lack of oxygen, and your kid will too. And so, yeah, taking the time to heal ourselves and restore ourselves, we might then be able to articulate what we need. So there's that step. But then also, if we're all healing and restoring ourselves, then we're more capable of putting the oxygen mask on someone else and possibly causing less further trauma for other people, because we are healed and restored ourselves, and so we are treating other people with more love and care.
Excellent, thank you. All right, anybody else have any thoughts before we wrap up and I pray over us and we do prayer requests? All right, well, I do want to express I'm super grateful for all of you. And many of you have helped me in restoration, in being restored, and helped me. And I think I'm blessed in a unique way that many of my friends who are pastors don't experience the type of care and concern from their community that I do. And I just want to thank you all for that. That's something unique, I think, in a lot of ways to our church. So I'm very grateful for that. So let me pray, and then we'll do prayer requests. Lord, you are so good and you are faithful. And each day, as Amanda mentioned earlier, your mercies are renewed, and that you have created in us a sense and a desire to daily be restored, daily work out our safety, daily work out the safety for others. So may we take this year of 2022 and beyond and really develop a perspective of participating in our own restoration as well as the restoration of others, to not hide the cracks that we have, to not hide the disrepair that needs maintenance, Lord, but instead help us to be vulnerable, help us to share, even if we don't know how to fix those things ourselves and we don't know what we need. May we find ourselves in a place that is safe enough to demonstrate those needs, and then may we each have the courage to step in and help where we can for one another. Lord, I love you that you consistently do that for us. I love you that you have empowered us to do that for one another. May we now take advantage of those things and be about restoration this year. Lord, I love you. I praise you. I give you all the glory. Amen. All right. Any prayer requests?